Welcome to my short story called Me Too. The city bus was half full as it moved through the normal traffic of the city. It stopped at a red light. In the back of the bus, Ellen Ferris sat with her granddaughter, Rachel, a cute, heavyset 19-year-old, who wore nose and ear studs. In her 60s, Ellen was agile and feisty, and she had white hair and bright, sparkling brown eyes. Nick sat in front of Rachel. At 30, with light features, he was thin, wiry, and the nerd type. "I'm sorry, Rachel. My car's in the shop." Ellen looked at her granddaughter, who reminded her so much of her own daughter. She tried to take Rachel's hand. "That's okay, Grandma." Rolling her blue eyes, Rachel pulled her hand away, thinking Ellen was weird. Her own grandmother. She looked around out the window. "This is fascinating," as she saw the big city. The bus pulled out, continuing down the street. "So you want to attend college here?" Ellen watched her. Rachel nodded. "He goes here. I met Pete at home." "A boyfriend, huh?" "Uh-huh." Rachel kept looking out the window and noticed something going on ahead at the cross street. Then she realized it was a protest march. "Grandma, look." She pointed out the window. "All those people." It caught Nick's attention as well as everyone else on the bus, and they were trying to look out the windows. Outside at the side street, people were holding signs against GMOs and fluoride. The crowd grew as the police moved in for crowd control. Squinting, Nick's brown eyes recognized someone in the crowd. He recognized Vince in the middle of the crowd, pushing his way up front to confront the police. One officer poked him, only hard enough to push him down. The good-looking, strong 50-year-old gritted his teeth in pain and became infuriated. The police shoved several people back. Pouting, Vince pulled out his gun. Someone bumped him and the gun went off. It startled the crowd, starting to panic. Everyone ran in all directions, and the police tried to grab for Vince, but he fought them and started shooting, so the police backed off. "You pigs!" Vince screamed, shooting his gun off. The police tried to wrestle him down. Then Vince fired and hit an officer in the neck, killing him. Struggling to get away, a smirk came over his face. "Got ya!" Vince kicked his way free and started running with the police not far behind. He only had a couple bullets left, he was sure. As he headed for the bus at the light, a passenger got off and Vince aimed his gun at the driver. "Out!" he demanded. The driver was stunned. He put his hands up and stepped down and out. The police stopped, seeing Vince aiming at the driver. The passengers started to panic. Quickly, Vince ran up the steps and into the bus and aimed the gun at the passengers. "Everyone out," he yelled at them. Quickly, they put their hands up and started out. Vince knew the police were outside, so he kept his gun on the passengers as they left. Sweating, he started shaking and didn't know what he was going to do. Then he turned his gun on Rachel, Ellen, and Nick. "Get back. Stay back. Sit down." Ellen and Rachel grabbed each other, sitting down in the last seats in the back. Vince stared at Nick. They eyed each other. Nick was Vince's son's lover. "Vince," Nick tilted and handed him. "Where's Joe?" "You tell me, lover boy," Vince snapped at him. The police were surrounding the bus. "Come out with your hands up," an officer yelled. Vince turned to the police outside. Rachel wanted to scream, so Ellen grabbed her around the mouth. It was a standoff. "Let them go." Ellen's eyes were straight on Vince. "I'll stay." And then they all turned to Ellen. "What?" Rachel gasped. "What?" Nick gulped, puzzled with the old woman. Squinting, Vince turned his gun on Ellen. Standing up slowly, Ellen didn't budge or blink. She tried to see into his spirit and felt his torment. "Please," Ellen stayed calm. "Grandma!" Rachel was tensing, worried, and clenching her fist. The police had the bus surrounded. "Come out now. Let the hostages go," an officer yelled. Shaking his head, Vince stared at Ellen. "No. Everyone stays put," he yelled, blinking. He wasn't sure what to do. "Sit down." He pointed his gun at Rachel while staring at Ellen. "Grandma, please don't." Rachel pulled her back. Shaky, Nick wanted to do something. He kept staring at the gun, wondering if he should try to jump him. Ellen noticed him and shook her head at him. Just stay put. Rubbing his mouth and his growing beard, Vince tried to figure out what to do. What did you do, Vince? Nick asked quietly. They're all a bunch of pigs, Vince snapped. You know each other? Rachel noticed the looks on their faces. His son Joe and I are lovers, Nick replied, admitting he was gay. You took him away from me, you asshole, Vince snapped bitterly. He's his own man, Nick insisted, wanting to do something. Rachel and Ellen noticed the tension between them. Vince noticed the police trying to close in on them. Stay back, Vince yelled, waving his gun around at his three hostages. It's okay, Vince. Ellen kept her eye on him, but not the gun. No one needs to get hurt here. The police are all a bunch of pigs, he interrupted her, snapping. They need to be stopped. What happened to you, Vince? Nick's sensitive light brown eyes watched him. Is it Cindy and Gloria? Joe told me what happened. And gritting his teeth, Vince's jaw rippled in anger and turned on Nick with his gun. Gasping, Nick backed off, sitting down. Vince sunk down so he wasn't a target. Gulping, Nick started trembling in fear. He wanted to cry, and he longed for Joe's strong arms around him. He started blinking fast. Grandma? Rachel didn't know what to do. Ellen had Rachel around the arms and was rubbing her back. It's not the end. Come out of there with your hands up, the police yelled. Now, or we'll... You'll what? Vince interrupted, aiming his gun at Nick. Stand up where they can see you. Then he pointed the gun at Rachel. You too. Trembling and shaking her head, Rachel was rolling her eyes around. No. Worried he was going to shoot, Ellen grabbed Rachel's hand. Stand up, Vince insisted. Gulping, Rachel clutched Ellen's hands hard and stood up. Please, Ellen begged. You'll gain nothing by doing this. Stop it now. They started it, Vince pouted, with furrowed, angry brows. Who's Cindy and Gloria? Rachel wondered. Cindy was his wife and Gloria's mother. Nick spoke up, wanting to do something. Ellen noticed his fidgeting and blinking. The police killed them in an accident. Shut up, Vince countered. You must be an athlete. Ellen noticed his strong shoulders and arms. And Vince nodded. Boxing. That takes stamina and discipline. It's good for you. Ellen was calm, watching him. Strong, dirty hands, she smirked at him. I like working with my hands. On cars? Ellen wondered. He nodded. Me too. I can strip and put it back together again. She stroked. Well, 30 years ago. Yeah? Vince wiped his sweating brow. Being a boxer, I'll bet you can dance. Ellen kept her eye on him. Love to. Me too, Ellen wanted to get him to open up. Country western? Vince was nodding. Yep, Cindy and I. And he stopped himself, wanting to forget the accident that happened 4 years ago. Diabetic Cindy was taking Gloria, who had asthma, to the hospital when they both had panic attacks. The police stopped them, and when they resisted arrest trying to explain what happened, they were killed. Me too, Ellen kept her eyes on him, knowing something terrible was wrong. Making faces, Rachel wondered what Ellen was up to. I like dancing too, Nick added, wanting to be a part of the conversation, and wondered what Ellen was doing. Well, something in common, Ellen deduced as she watched Nick and Vince. I like beer. Yeah, Nick and Vince spoke up together. Tom, my husband and I love to drink beer while watching football games, Ellen kept at them. Yeah, the Cowboys, Nick spoke up. Me too, Vince looked at him. I like ice cream. Rachel wanted in on it. Yeah, me too, Nick looked at her, wondering what was going on. Me too, Ellen smirked, noticing everyone was becoming more relaxed. Stop it, tensing, Vince yelled. Okay, Ellen shrugged. I just wanted to say that your blue shirt makes your blue eyes stand out. Me too, Nick commented, clenching his fist. He wanted to stand up to Vince and take him down. Staring at the gun, he wanted to get away from him. He learned from Joe that Vince could become violent. Looks like you two have a lot in common, Ellen concluded. Like hell we do. Vince turned on Ellen. Shut up! He pointed the gun at her. Ellen could feel his pain and fear. She wanted to disarm Vince and empower Nick. "You can't stand there forever," the police yelled from outside. Let them go." Getting nervous, Rachel needed the restroom. Ellen noticed Vince was sighing tired. He breathed deeply with his mind racing on what to do next. It gave him a headache. "You awake?" Ellen watched him carefully. Vince nodded. "Me too." "Me three." Nick cocked his head at Ellen. "Me four," Rachel added, tightening her legs together, needing to go. "Gee, we all have so much in common." Ellen wanted to get through to Vince. "Looks like we are more alike than we're different." Gulping, Vince felt Ellen's eyes on him. "Two eyes? We all got two hands, legs, feet, mouth, hair, minds." They all stood there staring at each other, and Rachel's body was shaking stiffly. "What would your wife and mother want you to do?" Ellen asked quietly. Pouting, Vince tensed, fighting his fear with hate and anger. "Let it go," she said quietly. Nick looked at himself, staring at his hands. He wanted to strangle Vince, but realized Ellen was right. He perked up, looking out the window, and recognized someone pushing through the crowd. "There's Joe!" He was surprised with wide eyes. "What?" Vince perked up, wanting to see the only one he did love. As he stood up, gunshots rang out near him, and a bullet creased his arm. Off guard, Nick tackled him down out of the way to the floor so he wouldn't get shot. And he got the gun away from him. Screaming, Rachel grabbed her mouth. Startled, Ellen jumped. "Stop! Don't shoot!" She was looking at Nick. And then down at Vince. "You don't want to lose your son too, do you?" The police got closer. Nick stood up with a gun in his shaking hand and aimed it at Vince. He had to grab it in both hands to keep it steady, and didn't realize what he had done. Two police officers charged in the bus with him. Turning over on his back, Vince looked up at him with frightened but strong eyes. Joe charged in the bus and saw Nick with the gun on Vince. "Dad! Nick?" He was a strong, macho man in his late 20s. "Oh, my God." Rachel blew a sigh of relief and turned to her grandmother. Everyone looked to Ellen, realizing what she had instigated. "Who are you, old lady?" Nick wondered. Ellen shrugged. "An old lady." And then she looked at Rachel. "Well, you always knew I was crazy, right?" And Rachel nodded. "Me too." Avoiding the press, Ellen and Rachel got home and saw the incident on TV. Sitting on the sofa, they watched the female reporter. It was just 2 hours ago when the chaos started. A lone man started shooting in the air. With the police present, panic started. People ran from the scene, but the men kept shooting and then turned and shot an officer in the line of duty and injuring others. It was terrible with all the confusion and bloodshed. The man, now identified as Vincent Nielsen, ran down the street. The police pursued him as he continued to shoot, running towards a stopped city bus. Blinking confused, Ellen and Rachel looked at each other. Nielsen ran out into the bus, still shooting and killing more people, including the driver. The female reporter had tears in her eyes, and she gulped. "What the hell?" Rachel perked up, tensing. "That's not what happened." The reporter continued. "Some people were forced off the bus, but Nielsen took several hostages. It was a standoff with the police until one of the hostages stood up to him and got the gun. The police took Nielsen off the bus, even though he kept cussing at the police and everyone." Rachel was making faces, wondering what was going on, and looked at Ellen. Ellen felt her eyes on her. "Grandma, what's going on?" "I don't know." Ellen shrugged, but she knew that the press was corrupted and was using the incident to create more fear in everyone. "We should do something." Rachel was getting angry and upset. "What?" Ellen looked at her. "Well, tell the truth." "I think we should leave it alone." Ellen realized that it would be too dangerous for them if they spoke up. "Grandma?" Rachel was totally confused with her. Then Ellen shut the television off and turned to Rachel. "We should talk." Thanks for watching. And if you want more stories, I've got plenty of them waiting for you here. See you next time.